Okay, we're at the Florida Artists Blacksmith Association conference, and I'd like to interview KIRK Sullens, who is one of our top-notch blacksmiths, and I'd just like to discuss a few things about smithing with him. So, when did you get started in blacksmithing?
Well, I first got hooked on it because I picked up a book in a bookstore in 1988.
88?
And I picked up a book called The Modern Blacksmith by a sculptor named Alex Wagers. And the book just made it seem so approachable, so doable, that I wanted to try it right there, and I just never let go.
Okay.
So by 1990, I was working full-time as a metal worker.
Oh yeah, doing what?
Well, I started out in a cut and paste shop. I did a contract job for them because they needed somebody who could forge something for the cut and paste shop. And so I did that, and then they hired me again as a laborer to help them install a big fence job, and right after that they hired me full-time.
So you went into a bit of architectural.
Yeah, when I first started blacksmithing, I thought, oh, I'm going to make knives and swords just like everybody else, because I did a lot of historical reenacting, and so that's just the direction I thought it would take me, and instead it took me into architectural work, and I found I really liked architectural work and sculpture, and the work that I got led me deeper and deeper into that, so it was pretty fun. I got some good opportunities, but I'm not a person with talent, but I'm a person who has had a lot of practice, and practice and skill will make up for not having talent.
I agree. I'm not all that talented, but I say I do my homework.
Yeah.
But you're one of the few people who can make an octopus.
I don't agree with that at all. I think just about anybody can do it. There's a tutorial on my website. Download it and try it. I wrote it up as best I could.
Okay.
And try it.
Well, would you consider yourself an artist blacksmith?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But not because I'm an artist, but because that's what the clients demanded of me. You make what the client wants, and so the client wanted art, so I made art. I didn't go into it saying, oh, I'm going to make art and find a client. The client came to me and said, make this, and it's like, oh, cool, I get to make stuff. So that's how it worked out for me.
So
when I went in 2018 to the BAM conference, Blacksmith Association of Missouri, and my first blacksmith teacher, Bob Patrick, was there. And Bob and I were there with a group of people who were my mentors and role models when I was coming up. And I was talking with them about how important mentors and role models are for somebody to move forward. And Bob turns and looks at me and says, yeah, I remember when you started, you didn't work very well with your hands. And, for a second I felt about that big, but, the more I thought about it, it's absolutely the truth. I was not, somebody that came to it naturally. I had to work at it. And literally,
you weren't a natural.
I was not a natural. And so I'm like the poster child for, if I can do this, you can do this. You just have to have tenacity to stick with it, to gain the skills that you need to do whatever you want. But once you gain those skills, man, the sky's the limit. It's awesome.
Well, you teach quite a bit. What do you try to convey? Like, do you break it down like to beginner, intermediate, expert, or you teach everybody the same? What do you?
I try to tailor it to the individual, because everybody has different learning styles, and saying it a certain way every time isn't going to work for everybody. So you got to feel them out for what presentation is going to make the most sense to them. It's like, I'd read about heat treating for years and never really wrapped my head around it. And then my friend Ralph Gudekens, who was a knife maker at the time, sat me down and said, well, this is what happens, and then this is what happens. And he said it to me in a way that made sense in my head, where the books really didn't. I had a superficial understanding of it, but he sort of unlocked the door that made it work. And so you have to try to find that door for every student. And some students it's easy, and some it's not so easy. You know, I've had a couple of different autistic students that you have to work to find the right key for those students, because they don't process like the other kid did, you know. But they can process, you just got to work at it.
What do you enjoy doing? What's your favorite?
I really like the teaching a lot. I like sharing it with somebody and seeing what they're going to do with the information you give them. Because, you know, you can say, oh, well, to do an octopus, you do this and this and this and this. But they're always going to do it a little different. And their results are going to be a little different. And sometimes they'll stumble on something that you would never have thought of, but that is better than what you were doing. And then you're learning from them. And
that's pretty cool.
I'm into that. I'm into finding out more. I love learning new stuff.
Okay. What do you see on the horizon? What for your experiment or whatever? Or where are you going?
There are a few things that I want to experiment with. Like, I'm really just starting to play with pattern welding, which I've dabbled at now and then over the years, but never got into it seriously. And then I met Steve Schwarzer, and Steve is doing some really cool stuff. And so I'm picking his brain, and he's sharing information with me, and I'm making my first little forays into pattern welding. Serious pattern welding. It's not just sticking a few layers together and, you know, learning to manipulate the patterns in ways that I never did before.
He's a good guy to learn from. He's going to be with us.
He's a great storyteller. Man, he's fun to hang out with. He's a lot of fun.
Okay. So you do make a few knives here and there, and
yeah, but it's not really my thing. The wildlife sculpture really is what I like to do more than anything else. You know, I grew up watching Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, which young people watching this aren't going to have a clue what that even means, but old people know. And I grew up on the wildlife shows on TV, and reading books about wildlife and birds, and so when I got a job where my work was to make wildlife sculptures and bird sculptures, and that was like heaven for me.
What do you make those for, like hotels or bars or something?
I worked for Bass Pro Shops for 15 years.
Yeah.
Their metal shop so we were making interior decor for stores and for the Bass Pro owners' many properties and all kinds of stuff. So I have a huge portfolio just because there was so much work to do for them.
Yeah, I walked on Bass Pro Shop one time, and they had a fireplace there, and it just blew me away.
Which one?
Oh.
In Orlando?
Yeah, I think it was Orlando.
So the one in Orlando, it's like a river scene with a copper alligator on a log. And,
I forget.
And, you know, trees leaning over the river and vines. And that was the first fireplace door. These fireplace doors are 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide.
Yeah.
They're big.
Yeah.
And that was the first one that I designed myself.
Oh.
Rather than just being given a design and interpreting it. And I had help with that. I have the guys in the shop that I work with, and particularly my friend Mike Robinson. He was a great sounding board, and I'd bounce ideas off of him, and he'd bounce them back at me, and we could refine into really good ideas by bouncing it back and forth. And that was the first one, and I used a photograph that he had, and expanded on it and made this scene. And the vice president of design and development came down to the shop, and he looks at this door and he says, you know, this is the best one we've ever done. And that made me feel, you know, big.
That's great.
Yeah, I couldn't walk through the door because my head swelled up so much. So,
terrific. Well, you're quite an artist, and I really appreciate looking at your work, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk.
thank you.
All right, we'll see you around the conference. All right.